A voice from the shadows commends a lone warrior for reaching the final battleground, acknowledging the many powerful foes he must have defeated. The hero stands resolute, sword and shield ready, as the voice extends its praise. The voice is revealed to belong to a colossal, monstrous figure who declares himself the Demon King. The Demon King offers to vanquish the hero with his own hands as a reward. The hero vows that he will not let that happen. He declares that the bonds forged with his friends push him onward. Empowered by the voices of his friends, the hero shouts that the strength of his bonds will never be conquered. The Demon King challenges the hero to try. He questions if the so-called strength of your bonds will work on him. The hero glares back with determination. The Demon King stands victorious over the ruins. The defeated hero lies in the Demon King's massive hand. The Demon King calls the power the hero believed in foolish. With a final crushing grip, the Demon King ends the hero's life. He then declares his intention to continue his conquest. Suddenly, a commotion from the distance distracts the Demon King. One of his underlings arrives, frantically reporting that the hero has appeared at the castle again. The Demon King dismisses the news, certain that the hero is finished. He pauses, a flicker of confusion crossing his mind. The underling is shocked to find only a skeleton where the hero's body lay, his equipment vanished. The hero reappears, facing the Demon King once more. He declares that this time, he will vanquish the Demon King for sure. The Demon King, though unsure how the hero revived, calls his persistence reckless. He roars that it doesn't matter how many times the hero comes at him. He effortlessly deflects the hero's attacks, deeming them useless and pointless. The Demon King promises to erect a gravestone for the hero at the end of his despair. He then unleashes a devastating blast of energy. The Demon King watches as the attack connects. The hero's form dissipates into nothingness. The hero reappears, crediting his survival to a charm of resurrection and declaring that the real fight is just beginning. The Demon King is utterly stunned, finding the situation impossible. He demands to know how the hero can resurrect so easily. He mutters that it's a difficult fate even for a Demon King. The hero claims his resurrection ability isn't new. He lectures the Demon King, stating that his isolation is the cause of his impending failure. The hero explains that he never looks down on his comrades and those bonds create this difference in power. The Demon King finds this reasoning completely nonsensical, believing resurrection has nothing to do with bonds. The Demon King dismisses the hero's logic. He declares he will simply keep killing the hero until his spirit shatters. He charges forward to attack. The battle rages on, leaving the ground splattered with the Demon King's dark blood. The Demon King stands panting. He is driven to exasperation, unable to comprehend how the hero keeps resurrecting. The Demon King, shaken, can only think of the hero as a nightmare. He calls the hero an irrational existence. Across from him, the hero stands poised and ready. With a calm but firm voice, the hero declares that this is the end for the Demon King. He launches himself forward in a final, decisive strike. The hero's blade finds its mark. The attack strikes the Demon King with incredible force. The Demon King's massive body is thrown back, crashing into the ground. He struggles but is clearly defeated. He attempts to rise, but the damage is too severe. Collapsed and bleeding, the Demon King refuses to accept defeat in a place like this. As the hero stands over him, the Demon King vows that he will not surrender. His final conscious thought is a vow that he will not give in. On that day, the long war finally came to an end. Some time has passed since then. The victorious hero returned to the royal capital. His subjugation of the Demon King became a great achievement to be spoken of. His legend would be told for all eternity. The Demon King screams that this is not the end. He awakens with a start inside a small, coffin-like object. He realizes that if he hadn't sent his soul to this isolated soul coffin, he would have been completely exterminated. He decides he needs to check on the situation. He laments the loss of his collected money and goods as a consequence of using a temporary body. He emerges in a new, much smaller form, screaming in frustration. He panics, feeling his soul momentarily leave him as his coffin tumbles. Hearing a rustling sound, he wonders what it is. He demands to know who is there. He spots a small slime creature in the undergrowth. He dismisses the creature as a mere slime, an inferior being. He proudly announces himself as the King of Kings, Demon King Agnian, ruler of demons. He is enraged when the slime seems to mock him. He declares that the slime will behold his power. He prepares to unleash his ancient magic. A tiny flame appears, which Agnian grandly calls the Flames of Origin. Panicked by the slime's lack of reaction, he insists it is a mysterious grand magic, not a simple fire drill. Utterly frustrated, he decides on a new course of action. He resolves to just beat the slime to death. Agnian prepares to unveil his second form. He pauses mid-transformation. He is unceremoniously flattened by the slime. He is left in shock, unable to believe it was done by a slime. He dismisses the slime as small fry, of no concern to him. He reflects on his past, recalling how he could have turned everyone into pawns. He remembers his disdain for the demon race, whom he considered incompetent. He laments that if only he had survived that day, everything would have worked out. He tries to fight back with a small item. His feeble attempts fail. He is left exhausted and questioning his own actions. The slime reminds Agnian of his identity as the evil demon king. It recalls how he has decimated countries, seized everything and committed ultimate atrocities. Agnian agrees, acknowledging that this is what is expected of him. Despite his grand past, Agnian despairs that now he can't even defeat a single slime. He is stunned by this realization. The small creature slowly approaches him. The slime gets closer. The slime attaches to Agnian. He realizes he can hear the slime's thoughts. The slime tells him it admires his guts for calling himself the Demon King. Agnian tries to correct it, saying he isn't aspiring to be the Demon King. The slime insists that such belief is what makes one fit for the title. The slime explains that as a fellow monster, it wants to become big and has survived by believing in that goal. It feels that Agnian is destined to rule because he was once the Demon King. The slime declares that since they've exchanged blows, it means they are now close friends. Agnian is completely baffled by this declaration. In commemoration of their newfound friendship, the slime offers to tell Agnian something interesting. It points out a magical river called the Veil of Fire that shines at night, suggesting it could help with his lack of mana. The slime suggests using the river. A delighted Agnian begins to laugh, realizing its potential. Agnian draws power from the river, complaining that the mana is truly inferior. He notes that it's nowhere near enough for him to fully recover. Despite this, he proclaims that this supply marks the first day of the Demon King's revival. He then addresses the slime. Turning to the slime, Agnian declares that the wretch shall become the Demon King's very first servant. He allows it to become his follower. He announces that his conquest of the world begins once again. Agnian runs through the forest, panting heavily. He realizes with dread that he has stumbled upon monster hunters. The two armored men calmly resolve to kill the monster, and their composure unnerves Agnian. His slime companion telepathically reminds him that even running is a life-or-death struggle. Agnian angrily tells it to be quiet. Agnian worries that at his current rate, his mana will not even last an hour. He dodges an incoming attack. He declares that even in his weakened state, he is still the Demon King and will not fall to mere humans. Agnian unleashes a powerful chaos magic spell called Eternality. In response, one of the hunters raises a magic scroll to counter the attack. The two magical forces meet, erupting in a massive explosion that engulfs the area. Agnian is bewildered when his spell has no effect. The hunters are confused, as they did not sense any mana being used. They call Agnian a coward and charge forward. The slime launches itself from Agnian's head. It flies through the air towards the hunter. The slime strikes the man in the face, shocking both hunters. The hunter is caught completely off guard and begins to choke on the unexpected projectile. The slime forces its way into the hunter's mouth. The hunter screams as he is consumed from the inside. The grotesque sight leaves even Agnian taken aback as the two hunters float away, seemingly lifeless. The slime returns, looking rather unpleasant as it digests its meal. Agnian tells it not to cling to him. The slime asks if it is its duty to eat for nourishment. The slime explains that demons are not like humans. It states that when demons kill, they diligently eat their prey, and this is their pride. After the hunters are picked clean, leaving only a pile of bones, Agnian sits with a full stomach. He notes that while they were a decent nutritional supplement, they provided little mana. He begrudgingly admits his new underling is surprisingly reliable and active. The slime retorts that Agnian is simply too weak. This provokes a defensive outburst from the Demon King about the true extent of his power. Agnian is concerned that repeated encounters will lead to his demise. The slime suggests he disguise himself as a human. Having consumed the hunter's blood and flesh, Agnian declares that the task is a piece of cake. He tells the slime to watch closely. Agnian transforms in a cloud of smoke. His first attempt results in a flamboyant nobleman, a form he believes exudes the dignity of a demon king. The slime points out that he is missing the point of a disguise. Agnian defensively claims it was just a test. He insists this is how he remembers humans looking. He transforms into a scantily clad female warrior. The slime bluntly calls the armor perverted. Agnian questions if all female humans do not look like this, but the slime tells him to move on. His attempt as an animal-eared girl is deemed too niche. The slime finds his martial artist form to be off. Agnian finally settles on the form of a young boy, a disguise his slime companion deems barely passable. The slime suggests he should choose an outfit next, recommending rags. Agnian quickly changes his attire. The slime also advises him to add a tragic story, like his family being eaten by demons. As if on cue, a human-drawn wagon appears on the road ahead. One of the men suggests they make contact with the child. Agnian puts on a convincing performance, claiming he escaped from the forest. He cries that both his mother and father were eaten. Internally, he praises his own realistic acting as he begs the men for help. Agnian begs the men to take him to a nearby town. However, the men see an opportunity, whispering to each other that they can sell the child for a profit. Agnian becomes enraged, screaming about how his plan has gone wrong. He wonders if they are chasing him because of his appearance and decides to release his disguise. He reverts to his demon form and demands the humans leave him alone. The men realize a demon will fetch more money than a child and decide to hunt it. One of them decides to tame the slime on its head first. He throws a net to capture the slime on Agnian's head. The other man savagely attacks Agnian. Agnian cries out as his bones crack under the force of the blow. The man gloats that he will take the Demon King apart and sell him. Agnian is left in despair at the thought of such an ignominious end. Just as the man prepares to strike the final blow, he is suddenly vaporized by a powerful energy blast. A deep voice from the shadows questions the presence of wretched humans in this place. A massive green-skinned orc appears, towering over the scene. He comments that this is hardly the time for hunting. Agnian recognizes the creature's features, noting its origin as a corrupted elf. He notes its green skin and muscular body. He recognizes its heroic fangs, identifying it as a well-known demon species. Agnian identifies the creature as an orc, but the orc seems confused. A large orc holding a human skull speculates that the small, weakened creature before him was also attacked by humans. Agnian denies it, noting an increase in human presence lately. The orc disregards Agnian's protests of his identity and invites the being he calls Mr. Bones to his village. Agnian proudly introduces himself as the Demon King, an evil incarnation of hellfire. The orc seems to understand, commenting that a true demon should speak of being on the path to becoming the Demon King, not simply aspiring to it one day. The slime companion laments that no one believes or trusts it, but then admires Agnian's boldness. As they walk, Agnian asks if all orcs look like his guide. The orc clarifies that he is a Highland orc and warns that Agnian is lucky he didn't encounter a wolfkind. While crossing a gorge, the orc explains that green-skinned orcs like himself are typically Highland orcs. He adds that this is the common perception of orcs, which is why Agnian was able to identify him so quickly. The orc continues his lesson, describing the violent, blue-skinned wolfkind and the rock-like Dugraban. Having explained the various differences among orcs, he announces their arrival at the village. They overlook a simple settlement nestled in a valley, the orc village. Upon entering, Agnian dismisses the village as primitive. When another orc asks who he is, his guide explains he found a bony guy in the forest who wants to be the Demon King. Annoyed, Agnian shouts that he is the real Demon King. To Agnian's surprise, the orcs are incredibly kind and encouraging, praising his ambition and offering him stew. However, their tone changes as they mention the previous Demon King, stating they don't want another careless one. They recall him as a frightening but amazing demon among demons. The orcs continue their critique, stating that the previous Demon King was ultimately defeated by the hero. They explain that he started a war alone, leading all the young demons to their meaningless deaths. Their sharp words cut deep, as they question why he even existed if he wasn't strong enough to win. They criticize the former king for reigning without ruling, a surprisingly intelligent observation that impresses Agnian. To deflect, he calls the previous king a liberal. The orc is confused by the term and pleads for kindness. The orc guide panics, realizing they need to console their guest. Agnian sits alone, reflecting on the orc's words. He sighs, admitting to himself that being a king is terribly difficult. He believed winning would bring acknowledgement and losing would mean denial, a simple view that allowed him to avoid complex worries. He realizes he never once thought about ruling, only about fighting. He recalls his past, driven by a desire for acknowledgement and a denial of truth. Blindly believing he was right, he sought only victory for the sake of a peaceful mind. This mindset created a monster of selfishness that grew until his defeat. Defeated by the hero and now lectured by orcs, Agnian questions what a king truly is. He ponders what his own ideal should be. His deep thoughts are interrupted when an orc cheerfully announces that the stew is ready. The slime in disguise claims it was sleeping. An orc serves Agnian a bowl of stew with a human skull floating in it, still calling him Mr. Bones. Agnian states he doesn't want any bones. The orc enthusiastically offers more. While the orc guide complains that no one listens to him, Agnian begins to crunch on the bones anyway. The orc guide offers some food to the slime. Another orc asks Agnian why he is spacing out. Agnian explains he was just worrying about the complexities of being a demon king. The orc guide admits he's not good with such difficult conversations. The orc suggests Agnian visit a place full of intelligent people for advice. He mentions a village of dark elves with whom the orcs have a long-standing relationship. Agnian trembles at the mention of the pointy-eared creatures. The orc confirms his guess. Agnian immediately misinterprets the relationship as something intimate and perverted, much to the orc's shock. He imagines a stereotypical lewd encounter, accusing the orcs of prejudice. The orc guide frantically explains that it's a complete misunderstanding. Another orc clarifies that elves see orcs as comforting, wobbly monsters, not ugly ones. The orc guide adds that, conversely, they see dark elves as kitten-like monsters. They become deviants in their mating season, a stereotype Agnian finds amazing. The guide then invites Agnian to join a few young orcs on a trip to the elves' village, where they will serve as teachers. The group will be led by a head instructor. Agnian initially scoffs at the idea of orcs teaching anything. However, he quickly changes his mind, deciding to go with them to the dark elves' village. He wants to witness their wisdom firsthand. He declares this will be his second grand step. An orc advises him to build his strength first, offering him a leftover skull. Agnian recalls being told to meet two young orcs at the head instructor's house, sensing something exceedingly strange about them. He wonders what could possibly be strange, as his mind focuses on their muscular builds. The two orcs appear, striking dramatic bodybuilding poses, and question what could possibly be strange about them. Agnian is taken aback, thinking they are far too muscular. The orc explains that unlike typical orcs, they don't carry a lot of subcutaneous fat. He gets uncomfortably close to Agnian, declaring that they are different. They aim to one day be like their head instructor, using all their power to achieve this goal. They urge Agnian to see the head instructor, continuing to flex much to his annoyance. Agnian feels underestimated, thinking this encounter with the buff orcs should be special for his bony body. He squeezes his hand, ready to show his power. With a pop of energy, he demonstrates his own strength. He laughs, declaring that he too can flex his strength if he chooses. A terrifyingly loud sound startles Agnian, who wonders what it could be. One of the orcs calmly informs him that it's just the head instructor speaking, though to Agnian, it sounded more like massive footsteps than a voice. A thunderous voice roars that the weak shall be executed, startling Agnian. He reasons that the one who trained these two must be a strong leader. A giant foot lands nearby, signaling the instructor's arrival. Agnian notices the air has suddenly grown warmer and wonders why. The ground begins to bubble and sizzle, and Agnian wonders if it's lava. The orcs explain that the temperature around the instructor is usually even hotter, as if he has a volcano in his skin. With a thunderous bang, a colossal figure with skin like cracked, glowing rock slams its fist into the ground, revealing itself to be the head instructor. The head instructor stands revealed in his full, awe-inspiring form, a giant of smoldering rock and fire. Agnian and the two orcs can only stare in amazement. Agnian realizes the orcs were serious and concludes that this being is not an orc. As the creature turns toward them, Agnian wonders what it could be. The instructor's fist roars with flame. The intense heat from his hand sizzles. He reaches a massive hand towards the tiny Agnian. Agnian is confused, asking what this is. The instructor turns and takes a few steps. The instructor begins Lesson 1, telling Agnian to copy his form. While Agnian is confused, the orcs are excited to receive guidance. Agnian decides to follow along, thinking it might be a greeting. He mimics the instructor's pose. The instructor tells him to hold the position for 15 seconds and stay relaxed. Agnian already finds the simple pose to be tiring. The instructor demonstrates the next step, breathing out while slowly lowering the arms. He instructs Agnian to raise his arm again before it fully descends. He is told to rotate his arm while raising it, paying attention to his muscles. Agnian's arms feel tired, and he laments that using magic would be a waste. The instructor encourages them to push themselves to the limit. Agnian wonders what a rep is, exclaiming how heavy the weight is. He feels a burning, painful sensation in his arm, as the weight seems to get heavier with each lift. After only 10 reps, he feels it's impossible to continue. The instructor shouts at him not to slack off, as the pole feels like a massive rock. Something seems to snap within Agnian's arm as he pushes himself. The pain in his arm changes from a burning sensation to lightning. His arm trembles, and he finds he can no longer lift it. He grits his teeth, deciding that 12 reps is enough. Agnian believes he has reached his limit. He pushes past his breaking point with a final, explosive boom. Startled, Agnian is on the verge of dropping the weight. A massive hand reaches out and supports his. The instructor praises his strong heart for not letting go and tells him there are only 3 more left. The instructor offers to help him with the rest. He explains that when you're close to your limit, the monster inside your heart whispers words of defeat. The two orcs agree, explaining that's why they train with friends. They believe that with a friend, your heart changes and difficult training becomes possible. The instructor encourages Agnian to do his best for the next 3 reps, though Agnian wonders if he's joking. With the instructor's help, he completes the 13th rep. The instructor remarks that he's putting up a nice fight. Agnian strains to complete the final 14th rep. The instructor praises him for having guts. The two orcs cheer him on, giving him a thumbs up. The instructor commends him for a job well done. The orcs toss Agnian into the air in celebration. The group celebrates Agnian's achievement. Breathing a sigh of relief, Agnian thinks it was not so bad. The instructor is amazed at his performance. The instructor then tells him to do 15 reps with his left arm, a command Agnian screams is impossible. Agnian explains that he used his usual greeting because he thought he recognized the person. He apologizes, admitting that he must have mistaken them for someone else. The large, horned creature trembles, asking if the display was simply due to a misunderstanding. The creature continues to shake, asking if an acquaintance of Agnian's truly looks like him. Agnian asks what kind of being he is, observing that he does not look like an orc. The creature asks if Agnian is referring to him. He begins to list his many names and titles, such as the Incarnation of Ancient Fire, the Gatekeeper of Hell, and the Emperor of Purgatory, Ifrit. The creature Ifrit states that his favorite name is Gowan, and invites them to call him that. Immediately after, his fiery form dissipates, and one of the orcs observes that he has run out of energy. His body sizzles as it cools. His fiery form pops and fizzles out. Gowan notes that his body feels cold. He slowly steps forward. He splashes into a pool of water, relieved to finally be somewhere nice and warm. One of the orcs explains that because the head instructor dedicated everything to his muscles, he can't speak properly when they are inactive, calling him a muscle brain. The other orc reminds them that they are supposed to head to the Dark Elves' village now and should get ready. Gowan, submerged in the water, seems to have forgotten their plan before remembering and agreeing. Someone muses that it seems more like his IQ dropped instead of him just having trouble speaking. The two orcs are greatly inspired, declaring that Gowan's spirit is what they should aim for. Agnian identifies the being as Gowan or Ifrit, a high-level fire spirit. He wonders why he would be training with low-level creatures like orcs. Agnian questions what kind of merit they could possibly have for him. Agnian admits to himself that he can't understand why. A distant voice tells him that rank isn't everything. The small creature explains that being able to lift something heavy doesn't automatically make someone amazing. It clarifies that this is simply their particular strong point. The creature concludes that strong and weak points merely exist to decide the position someone can be assigned to as Gowan approaches. Gowan, back in his powerful form, tells the orcs not to feel bad if they aren't good at training and suggests they have a toast to their muscles. Agnian looks on in silence. Agnian thinks about how demon kings have always ruled by fear. He is suddenly startled, asking what he just felt. He explains that he felt something touch and pull him, though the nearby creature felt nothing. He wonders if it could have been the wind. As the group prepares to leave, Agnian concludes that the feeling was far stronger than the wind. The small creature suggests they should just leave. With renewed determination, Agnian announces their departure for the Dark Elves' village. The group sets off with explosive energy. The group runs through the forest at high speed. Agnian struggles to keep pace, complaining that his lungs are burning and the others are going too fast. He specifically calls out Gowan, asking how he can be so fast. The slime creature tumbles along, telling them to stop drifting. Agnian comments that the creature is not like a normal slime, and the slime retorts by asking what he knows about them. Agnian thinks to himself that there's no reason to hurry like this. Gowan tells Agnian that he has to strike the iron while his muscles are hot. He gives a lengthy explanation on the benefits of combining different forms of exercise for optimal training. Gowan concludes that an appropriate burden is the key to growth as he drags the slime creature along. Exhausted from the journey, Agnian feels that it was too much of a burden. One of the orcs joyfully exclaims that he can see the village. The group approaches the large village built into the trees, and Agnian wonders if they're doing well. A young elf-like individual peeks out from a building. They hop down to the ground. Seeing the group, they wave and happily announce that the orcs are here. The individual smiles, welcoming them to the Arhat village and saying they've been looking forward to this. A voice insists that it is not over yet. An armored figure stands firm, a voice encouraging them that everything will be over if they give up now. A powerful being is summoned, commanded to call upon all of its strength. The dark elves writhe, seemingly in great discomfort from an unseen force. An orc comments on the elves' appearance, concluding that their lack of control is what makes them dark. Agnian expresses his desire to leave quickly, sensing he is about to get caught up in something. A friendly female dark elf offers to show Agnian around the village now that he has arrived. She explains that their current location is a communal space with markets located underneath the village. Agnian notes that despite being underground, the area is surprisingly bright, even though he saw some windows. The elf holds up a small pouch, telling him to take a look. The small object whirs to life. The elf points out the numerous floating lights all around them. Agnian and the elf gaze upon a vast cavern filled with floating lanterns and intricate structures. The elf explains they use automatic, magic-powered fans in the summer, which means the lights cannot be on at the same time. She adds that they have lots of useful equipment, including heaters for the winter. Agnian comments on their civilized tools, contrasting it with his impression that elves respected the balance of nature. She responds that being dark elves explains their ways. Agnian notes the presence of a creative master in the village, finding the name peculiar. The elf clarifies that the creative master is responsible for making most of the useful tools in the village. Agnian considers this information with surprise. He realizes his own weakening is clearer than he thought and hopes to reinforce his strength, perhaps by improving his staff. Agnian excitedly wonders if the creative master could strengthen his staff. The elf encourages him to go and see the master, though Agnian seems unsure. They arrive at the master's workshop. The creative master greets them, stating he knew the chief's daughter and Mr. Bones would come to him. He smirks, confirming that they want him to look at the staff and saying it will be easy. The master laughs, admitting that despite his creative efforts, he found it impossible to work on the staff. Agnian looks away, stating that anyone would have reached the same conclusion. The master holds the staff and asks where Agnian even found it. The master explains that while staffs are normally made of common woods, the wood from this one can no longer be found on Earth. Agnian questions what it means for the wood to not be found anymore. The master admits he hasn't researched ancient trees much, but thinks something this old could be from the Stardust Tree or the World Tree. He then taps the staff, revealing to a shocked Agnian that it has a seal on it. The master seriously asks where he got the item, while Agnian sweats, finding it all very strange. Agnian admits that he cannot remember. He states that he thinks he has always had it. The master asks if he means he's had it since he was born. The phrase "since I was born" echoes in Agnian's thoughts. The realization causes Agnian to collapse suddenly. The female elf and the master rush to his side, asking what is the matter and if he is okay. Agnian reassures them that it is nothing serious. Feeling dizzy, he explains that he was just unconscious for a moment. The master looks at the staff and concludes that it is deeply connected to Agnian's existence, questioning if he can't remember anything at all. The master notes that the staff can use high-level magic which exceeds his own abilities, though he is unsure of its usefulness. Agnian reveals that he once escaped a desperate situation by using a high-level magic called soul division. The master acknowledges that Agnian can use ancient magic, though Agnian clarifies that all the magic he can use is old. The master concludes that several secrets, including Agnian's past, are likely sealed within the staff. Gimlet taps the staff thoughtfully, commenting on how complex the situation has become. An elf bursts into the room, yelling for Gimlet and announcing they have a problem. He urgently shouts that it concerns Gimlet's grandmother. Gimlet looks up, surprised by the sudden news. After a long journey, a massive figure carrying a bed on his back finally arrives at a sun-drenched, flower-filled meadow, sighing in relief that he has made it. An elven woman sits on the bed, declaring the beautiful scenery is all hers, while her large, orc-like companion tells her fondly that she is his favorite. The elf marvels at how beautiful the scenery is. Her admiration pleases the orc. He then reminisces about a patient wallowing in a dark room, consumed by sorrow, but the elf wonders aloud if they are feeling any better. The elf complains that she's getting old and that going out like this is too much for her. The orc, confused, asks if that's why they brought the entire bed. Calling him a weirdo, she playfully performs a bit of magic, transforming a single petal into a large bouquet of flowers. The orc is stunned by her incredible magic. He exclaims that he's heard of the elves' crazy magic, but this is amazing. The elf coolly states that she has plenty more tricks if he's still looking for more. A younger elf appears, encouraging the older one to show off her magic, promising to take her to all sorts of places. Seeing that Mappa is having fun, he decides to go along with it. The orc prepares to move once more. The orc hoists the bed onto his shoulders as the younger elf runs ahead with excitement, beginning a grand journey towards a distant castle. Upon arriving, the younger elf worriedly calls out to his granny. The old elf, still in her bed, wonders how far they have walked. The group reminisces about the day the orc went off to war. The younger elf comforts his grandmother, acknowledging how tough it was, but reassures her that the orc is not one to give up. The elf reflects on how, for a long-lived species, the wait felt incredibly long. The orc agrees, remarking that the decade he was gone felt so long. Without the orc, the seasons and the world were not fun at all. The grandmother tells the orc that her world was grey without him. She explains that his return turned it into a world of rainbow colors. She asks him to do something one more time, like in the old days. She reaches out her hand, asking him to take her back to that special place. The orc hesitates at her request. The grandson becomes desperate, pleading with the orc to fulfill his grandmother's wish, even if it means embracing a lie. The orc understands and agrees to his desire. He announces they will go to the land of memories. As they travel, the grandmother soaks in the experience, the scent of green grass and the blue sky, remarking how fresh everything feels. Finally, the orc announces their arrival. The grandmother is overwhelmed by the sight. She gazes out at the beautiful, flower-filled meadow. Watching from afar, the grandson reflects on the situation. He thinks how unbelievable it is that someone so vibrant could be on the verge of death. He knows that despite her outward appearance, her soul is steadily wearing thin. The past is all that keeps her tethered to the present, as everything new becomes a hassle. He laments that she can no longer even remember her own grandchild's face. The grandson muses that the orc must be truly important to her. Nearby, a skeletal being observes the scene, wondering about the orc. Their companion explains that the boy and orc volunteered for the Demon King's army to afford a doctor for the grandmother. The grandson recalls that after surviving the war, they were attacked in a remnant hunt. The grandson laments that by the time they fulfilled their promise, her illness was already too advanced. He can't help but wonder what might have been if the Demon King had never started a war. The orc seems to agree, suggesting that it's better when wars don't happen. The orc's words strike the grandson. His expression shifts from shock to a sad smile. He finally breaks down completely. Overwhelmed with grief, he weeps for his